Well, that was the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre reacting to the Liberal government's fall economic update in the House this afternoon. And joining us right now is the Conservative finance critic Jasraj Singh Hallan. Mr. Singh Hallan, thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Listen, your leader has already signaled that Conservatives will not support this fall economic statement. What does your party find most troubling about it?
Well, let's start with what we asked for in the beginning of this fall economic statement. We had three asks. We had one is to balance the budget so that interest rates and inflation can come down. We know Canada's most at risk in the G7 of mortgage default crisis because this government spent more money than every single government before them, fueling the 40 years high in inflation and the most rapid interest rate hikes ever seen in Canadian history. Number two, we asked for a pause on the quadrupling of the carbon tax so that we could bring down the costs on home heating, gas, and groceries. And third, and let me just add to that, that once Pierre Poilievre becomes Prime Minister, we'll axe the tax completely so that more families can afford gas, groceries, and home heating. And on top of that, we could put a massive dent in inflation. And number three, implement our common sense leaders' common sense Conservative plan to build more homes and not bureaucracy by doing things like incentivizing municipalities by increasing permit closes by 15%. What that would do is help create more supply through the free market into Canada, helping lower the costs and getting more people into homes than ever. Because today we see home affordability is out of hand when 9 out of 10 young people say they can't afford a new home, and we're seeing rents and mortgages and the needed down payment on a house double after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government, spending more than every single government before them combined. This fiscal update, or a false promise update is what it looks like, has nothing but more spending. Spending is going to be up, rents are not going to go down, mortgages are not going to go down, photo ops are going to go up after this fall economic statement announcements, but it's not going to do anything to address everyday Canadians' needs, which is a cost of living crisis that was created by this Liberal NDP government.
Okay, let me break up a bit of what you've just said there, and I'm going to begin with your path back to a balanced budget, because the Liberals do tie the country's economic health to their so-called fiscal anchor, this debt to GDP ratio, rather. And really, when you look at that ratio, Canada's debt to GDP ratio is the strongest of the G7. What do you say to that?
You know, someone recently said that comparing ourselves to the G7 is like comparing the cleanest, cleanest dirty laundry inside the dirty laundry hamper. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing now is Canada is in the worst position it's ever been in Canadian history, when we have 2 million people going to a food bank in a single month. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals. Canadians are living inside under tents, in tent cities, under bridges, and in their cars. And what this government has created is a phenomenon of the middle class, where more middle class families, 2 income earning families, are going into food banks and living in their cars more than ever before. This is not a sign of success in Canada. Many people came here, like my family did, as immigrants for the Canadian dream. That Canadian dream is gone after 8 years of this Liberal NDP government. What we need to do is make sure that we're bringing down and bringing home lower prices so we have more powerful paychecks for Canadians, that they don't have to rely on more and more supports. We want to be able to have them keep more in their pocket. That's what a common sense Conservative government would do.
And a balanced budget would do that? And a balanced budget would do that?
Absolutely, and you just have to listen to what the Governor of the Bank of Canada said. They said that the government's deficits fuel inflation. The finance minister admitted that herself. And what do we see? We see 40-year highs in inflation and the most rapid interest rate hikes. Though in Canadian history, we're not going to see those interest rate hikes go down, according to the Governor of the Bank of Canada, because he said what the government is doing with their spending is working in opposite direction of what he's trying to do by taming inflation, by bringing down the interest rates. That can't happen with more and more fuel being poured on the inflationary fire. This fiscal update tells you that they will never balance a budget. We have to remember last year the finance minister played a trick on Canadians in her fiscal update, or what we call a false promise update. She promised that she would balance the budget last year, then did a massive flip-flop and said, "I'm just kidding, I will never balance the budget." And what did that do? We've seen inflation go up and interest rate hikes. We need to balance the budget so Canadians can keep more in their pocket and afford more and make everyday life more affordable for Canadians.
Okay, but you know, to hear it from Christopher Freeland, what the Liberals have actually done here are more targeted investments so that they would not add fuel to the inflation fire, if you will. And when it comes to things like housing, you know, they have tied federal funding to getting rid of red tape in certain municipalities, trying to expand that in order to create more housing. Do they not deserve credit at that front? Because that sounds very much like a conservative policy.
I'm not sure what we're trying to give credit for. They've got a lot of photo op kind of announcements inside this fall economic statement, but nothing, no shovels in the ground. This is a government that spent $89 billion they committed to housing, only to have rents and mortgages double. Housing starts are down. We don't see investment in housing. Investment in housing is down 14%. And actually, Scotiabank recently also said that the interest rate could have been 2% lower if the government had not spent as much as they did today. So I'm not sure what we're crediting for. If they want to take credit for something, they can take credit for doubling rents and doubling mortgages and sending more and more Canadians into food banks, because that is going to be the legacy and record of this out of control, out of touch Liberal NDP government. We need to axe things like the carbon tax so we can put a massive dent in inflation, which would also help interest rates come down and Canadians could save more on gas, groceries and home heating.
Mr. Singh Hallan, always appreciate the time. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Michael.